The cold wind swept across the battlefield, carrying the scent of burnt metal and shattered lives. Snow fell over the wreckage, covering the bodies of fallen soldiers from both sides. In the middle of the destruction, a lone human soldier stood, his breath turning to mist in the frigid air. His name was Daniel Cross, and he had been fighting in this war for far too long. Yet this day was different. Something about the silence felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. Across the field, the sound of armored footsteps broke the stillness. Emerging from the smoke came a figure unlike any Daniel had ever seen. She was tall at least 8 feet, and her presence commanded the air around her. Her armor was unlike anything human technology could produce, molded to her form with black and crimson patterns that shimmered in the pale light. Her hair flowed like strands of molten fire, dusted with snow. And her eyes, those fierce golden eyes, locked on Daniel as if she had been looking for him. This was Queen Serenia of the Veyra Dominion, a name that brought fear to entire worlds. To her people, humans were little more than primitive creatures, barely worth acknowledging. She had often mocked the idea that a human could ever match the strength or honor of her kind. She had even laughed in council chambers when other rulers suggested peace with Earth. Yet now, for reasons even she did not fully understand, she had chosen to walk alone onto the battlefield where a single human remained standing. Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle. Every instinct told him to fire, but something in her gaze stopped him. There was no fear in her expression, only curiosity. And something else, something harder to define. Around them, the snow thickened, and the broken machines of war lay silent like monuments to a pointless fight. She approached without raising a weapon, her steps slow but deliberate. Daniel could feel the heat radiating from her even through the freezing air. "You are the last one here," she said, her voice deep yet strangely melodic. "Why did you not flee when your forces were broken?" Her words were accented, each syllable carrying a sharp precision. Daniel lowered his rifle slightly, unsure if speaking would seal his fate. "Because running wouldn't change anything," he replied. "If this is where I die, I'll face it standing." His voice was steady, though his heartbeat was a drum. In his ears, for a moment, Serenia studied him. Her people believed courage was a virtue reserved for the strong, and humans were never counted among them. Yet here was a man who looked her in the eye, even knowing he could not win. "You speak as if you understand honor," she said quietly. "Perhaps more than some of my own warriors." She circled him, her towering form casting a shadow over his smaller frame. Daniel followed her with his eyes, unsure if she was measuring him for death or something else. A faint smile touched her lips, though it was not entirely friendly. "I came to end what remains of your kind here. But now I wonder if ending you would waste something rare." Her words chilled him more than the snow. Daniel's mind raced. Was she toying with him, or was this a strange kind of respect? He swallowed, trying to keep his voice even. "If you're here to kill me, then do it. But don't talk like I'm some prize you can take home." That made her pause, and for a moment her golden eyes softened. The sound of distant engines echoed across the frozen hills. Her forces were coming. She turned her head slightly, then back to him. "You interest me, human. I do not know if that is a blessing or a curse. But I will not kill you today." With a sudden movement, she reached out, seizing his wrist with a grip like steel. Before he could react, she pulled a small blade from her armor and pressed it lightly to his palm, letting a single drop of blood fall onto the snow. She then pressed her own claw against her skin, adding a drop of her own beside his. The 2 drops mixed in the white powder, turning the snow a strange, shimmering red. "Our blood now touches," she said, almost as if speaking to herself. "In my culture, that means a bond, though I do not yet know what kind." She released him and stepped back. In that moment, Daniel knew something had just changed, though he couldn't name it. Whatever war had begun between their worlds, Something new had started here, in the silent snow between a human soldier and an alien queen. The snow crunched under Daniel's boots as he followed the towering alien queen through the forest. He didn't remember agreeing to go with her, but her grip on his wrist had made it clear this wasn't a choice. The cold air stung his face, yet the strange warmth radiating from her kept him from freezing. She walked ahead without looking back, her long hair swaying like streams of fire against the white landscape. The forest was silent except for the sound of their steps. Daniel had no idea where she was taking him. Every time he glanced at her, he saw the same controlled, unreadable expression. She moved like someone who had never feared danger, someone who knew every creature within miles would hesitate before crossing her path. Her presence alone was enough to make him feel small, but there was also something else, almost magnetic, that pulled his eyes back to her even when he tried to look away. After a while, the trees opened into a clearing. A massive alien ship rested there, its black and crimson hull shimmering in the pale light. The sight made Daniel's stomach twist. If he boarded that ship, there might be no coming back. Serenia stopped at the base of the landing ramp and finally looked down at him. "You are under my protection now," she said, her voice calm but carrying a weight that made the words feel like a command. "From this moment, no one in my dominion may harm you unless I say so." Daniel didn't know if that was a blessing or a trap. Two alien guards approached, both heavily armored and carrying weapons that looked far beyond human design. Their eyes lingered on Daniel with open hostility. One of them spoke in a language he didn't understand, but Serenia's response was sharp and cold, making both guards step aside without another word. As she walked past them, Daniel followed closely, knowing that staying behind would only leave him standing alone among soldiers who wanted him dead. Inside the ship, the air was warm and filled with a faint metallic scent. The walls were smooth, alive with dim lines of pulsing red light. Serenia led him down a wide corridor, past more soldiers who looked at him as though he were an intruder. None dared to challenge the queen. Finally, they entered a large chamber, with a high ceiling and strange banners hanging from the walls. It felt like a throne room, though there was no throne, only a raised platform where she stopped and turned to face him. "Tell me your name," she said. Her gaze was steady, and there was no sign of amusement or mockery in her tone. "Daniel Cross," he replied, trying to sound confident. "And you?" She tilted her head slightly, as if surprised by the question. "Serenia Virith, Queen of the Dominion you have been fighting against." The name was familiar. He had heard it in countless briefings. She was a commander feared for never losing a war. And now she was standing close enough that he could see the faint patterns along her skin, patterns that seemed to shift with the light. "You wonder why I have brought you here," she said, as if reading his thoughts. "Your courage interests me. Your refusal to kneel interests me more. But there is something else." She stepped closer until he could feel the heat of her breath. "When our blood touched on the battlefield, I felt something, a connection. I do not yet know if it is strength, danger, or fate, but I intend to find out." Her eyes locked on his, and for a moment he couldn't move. Daniel's mind spun with questions. Why was she talking to him like this? Why hadn't she just killed him? And why, despite every warning he had ever heard about her people, did he feel like there was more to her than the stories said? Serenia took a step back, her expression unreadable again. "You will stay here until I decide your fate," she said. Then, with a faint curve of her lips, she added, "And perhaps you will change mine." Daniel's first night on the alien ship was long and restless. They had given him a private chamber, though it felt more like a prison cell disguised as comfort. The walls pulsed faintly with red light, casting strange shadows across the metallic floor. A bed-like platform was built into the wall, covered in a dark, soft fabric he didn't recognize. He sat on its edge, listening to the low hum of the ship's engines. Every so often, he thought he heard footsteps outside, but no one came in. He replayed the day's events in his mind, her towering figure on the battlefield, her voice in the snow, the strange ritual of mixing blood. He didn't know what it meant in her culture, but the way she spoke about it made it sound important, and the way she had looked at him. It wasn't just curiosity. It was as if she had already decided he was something more than an enemy soldier. The door slid open without warning. Serenia stepped inside, her presence filling the room. She was no longer wearing full battle armor. Instead, she wore a sleek, dark suit that hugged her frame, lined with glowing patterns that shifted like living fire. Her long hair was damp, as though she had just come from some kind of ritual or cleansing. She crossed the room slowly, each step deliberate, her golden eyes fixed on him. "You have questions," she said simply. Daniel didn't deny it. "Why am I here? Why not just let me go or kill me?" She stopped a few feet away, her height making him tilt his head up to meet her gaze. "Because," she began, "your survival may change the future of my people, and perhaps yours." She crouched slightly so they were at eye level, her expression softer than he had seen before. "When I mocked the idea of my kind breeding with humans, it was because I believed your bodies were too fragile, your blood too weak. But something in you defies that belief." Daniel felt a strange mix of pride and unease at her words. "You're talking like I'm some experiment." She tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "Not an experiment. A possibility." Her hand brushed lightly against his wrist, the same place she had cut to mix their blood. He felt a warmth there, a faint pulsing as if their heartbeats had aligned. "Do you feel it too?" she asked quietly. He hesitated before nodding. "I don't know what it is, but yeah, I feel something." Her eyes lingered on him for a long moment, before she straightened. "Then we will see where it leads." She turned to leave but paused at the door. "Rest, Daniel Cross. You will need your strength." The door closed behind her, leaving him in silence once more. Yet the warmth in his wrist remained, as though her touch had left something alive beneath his skin. The next morning, 2 alien attendants came for him. They led him through winding corridors into what looked like a training hall. The air was warm and smelled faintly of metal and smoke. Serenia was there, already waiting. She wore full armor again, but her posture was relaxed. "Today," she said, "I will see how strong you are." She tossed him a strange weapon, long, curved, and lighter than it looked. "Defend yourself." What followed was less a fight and more a test. She moved with impossible speed, her strikes precise and powerful, yet she never aimed to truly harm him. Daniel blocked, dodged, and countered as best he could. Every time she landed a blow, she smiled faintly, as if pleased. When he finally managed to disarm her, she stepped back, breathing steadily, her eyes bright with interest. "Better than I expected," she said. "Perhaps there is more human strength than I allowed myself to believe." Daniel was catching his breath when she stepped closer again, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "If you survive, what is coming, human? You may not just be a soldier in this war. You may be something my people have never seen before." Her words left him with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear: whatever bond had begun between them was growing, and neither of them could ignore it any longer. Days passed on the alien ship, and Daniel began to notice changes in the way the crew treated him. At first, every guard and soldier glared at him like he was an unwelcome insect. But after the training match with Serenia, some of their stares carried something different: curiosity, even grudging respect. Word must have spread that the human had lasted against their queen longer than most warriors could. Still, Daniel knew respect didn't mean safety. The wrong move could end his life in seconds. One evening, Serenia summoned him to a private chamber at the highest point of the ship. The room's walls were made of glass-like panels, showing a sweeping view of distant stars. She stood with her back to him, her armor removed, wearing ceremonial robes lined with gold and crimson threads. Her hair caught the light, shining like molten copper. When she turned, her eyes locked onto his, and he saw no mockery, only focus. "My council has questions," she said. "They think I am wasting time on you. They think you should be executed to prevent complications." Daniel stepped closer, his hands tightening into fists. "And what do you think?" She didn't hesitate. "I think they fear what they do not understand. And I think you might be the key to something greater than either of our species has seen." She paused, her voice lowering. "I have already broken one law by bringing you here. If I continue, I may break many more." Daniel wasn't sure how to answer. Why risk it? "I'm just one soldier." Serenia's golden eyes softened for a moment. "No, you are the first human to stand in my presence without bowing, the first to match my strength in combat, and the first to share blood with me. You are not just anything anymore." Her words carried a weight he couldn't ignore. There was something unspoken in them, something dangerous. She stepped closer until only inches separated them. "Our blood bond is not a simple tradition," she explained. "It is ancient, older than my dominion. It was once used to choose leaders, mates, even heirs." Daniel's pulse quickened at the last word. "Are you saying?" She raised a hand to silence him. "I am saying I do not know what fate intends. But if this bond grows, it will change both of us. Perhaps more than either of us can control." Before Daniel could reply, the door burst open and one of her commanders entered, speaking rapidly in their language. Serenia's expression hardened. "A human fleet has entered the outer rim," she translated. "They are moving toward my territory." She looked back at Daniel. "If they attack, I will be forced to fight them. Your people may see you as a traitor for being here." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we stop them before it comes to that." She studied him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "You speak as if you already fight for my side." He met her gaze steadily. "Maybe I fight for what's right. Maybe I fight for you." The corner of her lips lifted, not quite a smile. "But close. Be careful, human. Words like that can bind you as much as blood." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The ship's hum felt louder, the air heavier. He kept replaying her words in his mind. A bond older than her empire, a fate neither of them could control. And somewhere deep down, an unshakable truth was forming. If it came to it, he would stand beside her, no matter the cost. The alien ship moved at incredible speed, closing the distance to the approaching human fleet. From the observation deck, Daniel watched the stars streak past, each one a blur of white light. His chest felt heavy. These were his people, they were. Rushing toward men and women who might already think he was a traitor. He didn't know if there would be words or weapons waiting for him. Behind him, Serenia stood silent, her gaze fixed on the distant ships. The moment the fleet came into range, the main view screen lit up. Dozens of human warships appeared, their sharp metallic frames glowing in the dark void. Daniel recognized their formation. It was an attack stance. A human admiral's face appeared on the screen, stern and unyielding. "Queen Serenia," he said, "release our soldier at once, or face the full strength of Earth's fleet." His voice carried no warmth, no room for negotiation. Serenia's eyes narrowed. "Your soldier is under my protection. He is here by my choice, not yours." The admiral's gaze shifted to Daniel. "Are you being held against your will?" Daniel hesitated, feeling every pair of eyes in the room on him. "No," he said firmly. "I'm here because I want to be." The admiral's jaw tightened, and a murmur spread through the human crew on the other side of the screen. "Then you've chosen your side," the admiral replied coldly. The connection cut, leaving only the silent stars. Daniel turned to Serenia. "They'll attack." She gave a slow nod. "Yes, but they will not find us unprepared. She stepped onto the command platform and issued rapid orders to her crew. Shields flared to life, and alien warships moved into formation around them. The air in the command chamber grew tense, every movement precise, every word sharp. Daniel could feel the weight of the moment pressing on his shoulders. When the first shot was fired, the void lit up with bursts of light. Alien and human ships clashed in a deadly dance, beams of energy cutting across the black. The alien ship shook under the impact of weapons fire. Daniel braced himself against the railing, his heart pounding. He had fought in battles before, but this was different. He wasn't fighting for Earth now. He was fighting to keep her alive. In the chaos, a sudden explosion rocked the ship. Sparks rained from the ceiling as alarms blared. A blast door sealed behind them, locking them in. Serenia moved quickly, pulling Daniel behind a control console as another impact shook the deck. "Stay with me," she said, her voice steady despite the danger. Her hand brushed against his again, and he felt that same strange warmth surge through him. In the middle of battle, it felt almost alive. The alien fleet began to push back, their advanced weapons tearing through the human formation. Daniel expected Serenia to finish them, to destroy the ships entirely, but she didn't. Instead, she ordered her forces to disable weapons and engines, leaving the enemy adrift rather than dead. When he asked her why, she only said, "Victory without slaughter carries more weight than a battlefield of corpses." When the battle finally ended, the human fleet was in retreat, limping back toward the edge of the system. Serenia stood tall in the command chamber, her crew watching her in silent respect. Then, in front of all of them, she turned to Daniel and placed her hand over his heart. "You are not just under my protection," she said loudly enough for every soldier to hear. "You are part of me now. Let the galaxy remember it." Gasps rippled through the room. Daniel felt every eye on him, but he didn't look away from her. In that moment, he knew something had shifted. This wasn't just about survival anymore. Whatever had started in the snow had become something far deeper, something neither war nor politics could stop. The war was over, at least for now. Weeks passed without another battle, and the alien ship drifted quietly through the stars. Daniel had begun to feel less like a prisoner and more like something else. He still didn't understand the depth of his bond with Serenia, but it had grown stronger with each passing day. When she was near, he felt it in his blood, a steady pull, as if they were two halves of the same thread. One morning, Serenia summoned him to her private chambers. The room was warm, lit by soft golden light. She stood by the large window, her ceremonial robes flowing like liquid fire around her. Her expression was different, calmer, almost hesitant. For a queen who commanded empires, she looked strangely vulnerable. When Daniel approached, she turned to face him, and her golden eyes seemed deeper than he had ever seen them. "There is something you must know," she began. "Our blood bond. It was not just symbolic. My people's science has confirmed what my instincts already told me." She paused, watching his reaction. Daniel frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, her height making him tilt his head back to meet her gaze. "It means human. That I carry life within me, your life, our life." For a moment, Daniel could only stare at her. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. "You're saying you're pregnant?" She gave a slow nod. "Yes, against everything I believed, against every law I have upheld, it has happened, and I do not regret it." Her voice carried a firmness that left no room for doubt. She reached out, placing her hand over his chest, and he felt that warmth surge again, stronger than ever. Daniel's mind was a storm. He thought of their first meeting in the snow, of the moment their blood had mixed, of every word and glance since then. He had never imagined this, but now that it was real, he felt no fear. Only a strange sense of belonging, as if fate had been leading them here all along. Then we protect it, he said quietly, no matter what it takes. Her lips curved into a faint smile, the kind he had learned was rare and real. You speak like a king, she said. Perhaps the galaxy will see you as one. She stepped back slightly and raised her voice, her words carrying the weight of command. From this day, no one will question the bond between us. The child I carry will be the bridge between our peoples, and I will destroy any who would harm. News of her declaration spread quickly. Across the Dominion, some called it a miracle, others a betrayal. Among humans, it sparked both outrage and awe. But none of it mattered to Daniel as he stood beside her on the viewing deck, watching the stars drift past. For all the battles and bloodshed, for all the walls between their worlds, they had created something no war could erase. Serenia placed his hand gently against her stomach, her golden eyes never leaving his. Once, I mocked the idea of a human ever being my equal, she said softly. Now, you are part of me. And through our child, you will be part of my people forever. And as the endless stars shone beyond the glass, Daniel knew that their story, whatever it became, was only just beginning.